Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. I hope you guys are having a fun-filled week here on this wonderful Friday. I am back in Erie area right now visiting with a bunch of people, so we are keeping a shorter show this week. A little bit different schedule, and of course we got that crazy eclipse coming up on Monday, and we'll hopefully get back to something somewhat normal here after that. But all that being said, we do have our fairly normal news schedule today. We have privacy, security, business, and SillyVille news for this week. Let's go ahead and dive on in. First, an update to the Google Incognito lawsuit. So, of course, this is the suit where people were using incognito mode thinking that didn't mean, that meant that nobody could see anything they're doing. I'm not completely siding with Google on this one, but this is kind of like an everybody sucks here situation, because don't think that incognito mode means you're not being tracked on the internet. What kind of moron are you? I mean, really. So the only way to hide yourself on the internet is to disappear into the background gray matter of all the rest of the NPCs out there with like a tour through like a Tails or a Cubes or a Whonix or something. And even then you have to be a little bit more careful about it. But for those, using incognito mode mostly protects other users using the computer from knowing what it is. Incognito mode is basically there for sausage party. And other than that, it doesn't do a whole lot of other things. You can, of course, use it if you need to check a website without being logged into it or things like that. Do a clean install. If you're at a friend's house, you want to check your email, do it through an incognito tab. Those are useful things because it protects you, protects the computer from storing cookies or things that you're doing. It does not do anything, and it has never done anything, and I don't even think it has pretended to do anything like blocking the traffic data. But of course, that's me who understands how these things work. But they nevertheless are like, okay, we're going to agree to a big settlement. And I don't remember if there's actually money exchanging. I think there is 50 cents for people in it. But mostly what this deals with, mostly the outcome of this class action was the first thing they had to do is they have to change how incognito mode works to actually make incognito mode more private from the internet perspective. The other thing they have to allegedly do is delete years of browsing data for people that they have determined are utilizing incognito mode in some form or fashion. So they are also going to have disclosures about what it collects in it. And I think they're already starting to roll some of this stuff out. And ultimately, it means Google is going to collect less data from users in private browsing sessions, and they would likely make less money from the data. So the lawyers for the plaintiffs valued the accord at more than $5 billion and as high as $7.8 billion. Though users will not receive damages, they may still sue individually for damages. Google did not immediately respond. So it boils down to the final summary is they're going to be deleting some of the data they collected on users confirmed to be in incognito mode and making changes to how incognito mode works going forward. But if you want to be private on the internet, the best way to do that is learn how to be more anonymous using either the Tor browser bundle or Tails or Cubes or Whonix. And we have tutorials on our channel about all of those. I don't know if we have any about the Tor browser. Come to think of it, maybe we'll do that. I don't generally recommend that as an option. It's just too easy to run one of the other ones. But I don't know, maybe we need to add that to our list of things to look at. So that is what Google is up to. Next up in privacy, Meta now requires users to verify their age to use the Quest VR headsets. Now, this is starting out with just a simple, you have to fill the information in. But one of the things that I thought was very interesting is since it's easy to lie about someone's age when entering only a birth date, Meta says it'll require people who accidentally enter a wrong birth date to verify with an ID or credit card. So effectively what this means, reading behind the lines. Now, we know that Meta augments the profile information it has about you by buying it from other forms of data collectors. So if I go into Facebook and they already know who I am because they have cross-linked my data from stuff they have picked up from some other group, and I go in and I go, well, I'm not giving Facebook my real birth date, and I enter something accidentally accidentally on purpose, that is not necessarily tied directly to what they think about me, they're going to require me to use an ID card or a credit card. So this is that first step backdoor into verifying it. It's kind of like Twitter, right? So Twitter allows you to create an account. Now, this is pre-Musk. Last time I set up a Twitter account is pre-Musk, so I do not know if this has changed. But the last time I had to set up a Twitter account, and I have a couple. I have one for Switch to Linux. I have one for Our Walk in Christ. I believe I have one for Writing Done Right, although I really don't do anything with that channel at this point in time. So you can create a Twitter account without a phone number. But if you create a Twitter account without a phone number, they're going to flag you as bot behavior and require a phone number to get in there. I have a couple flying birdies here for you, Twitter. So that's kind of what they're doing. This is really Facebook's way of getting people's photo IDs. Oh, let's verify the information we have collected about you. Oh, what you enter does not match which we have purchased from the data broker, so we're going to require you to enter your ID now. So I'm just happy not using a Quest headset. I'm happy not using Facebook or Meta or any other nonsense that comes along with any of this crap. That's my thought. Let me know what your thoughts happen to be. But staying on the Facebook trend and a page that apparently did not load its CSS, Ars Technica brings us Facebook let Netflix see user DMs, quit streaming to keep Netflix happy, says a lawsuit. Now, a lot of the news reports are saying that this, Facebook gave Netflix the private messages. Facebook says they did not do that. We have to keep in mind that as much as I hate Facebook, it is not in their best interest to do this. And I think what we're going to see more than anything else here, it is an allegation as part of the lawsuit. There is information and documents that seem to suggest something like this, but it pains me to say I've read Facebook's response to that, and forgive me, folks, I'm going to have to probably agree with Facebook on this one. Oh, I said it. I need 50 lashings. No, what is that, 39? I think I need 39 lashings with a wet noodle for agreeing with Facebook. But let's go ahead and walk through what the allegations are. So Facebook wanted to create a streaming service that was effectively a competitor to Netflix. Netflix is like, hey, we're going to waive $200 million of potential ad revenue in your face. Could you do something about this? And this allowed them to use a special API. Now, there's various APIs, and remember, these APIs allowed access to a lot of private user data. Now, it wasn't necessarily stealing the data from the servers, but it was gaining access to it and being able to use things with it. The biggest one of these was the I can't really forget. I'm forgetting the name. The Analytica scan. What is that one called? You guys know what I'm talking about. The old Analytica scam that happened. This actually, all of these negotiations, everything we're talking about happened in the exact same era as that particular scam. I'm scanning the comments here, see if somebody actually mentions what that was. So if you know, put it in the comments. I'm going to monitor for that so I can have that up to date. So this is in the same era, but they had different APIs. They had a Facebook Extended API, they had an Inbox API, they had a Titan API, and they had a whitelist API, which apparently Cambridge Analytica, thank you CCJ, it was the Cambridge Analytica scam. This is basically utilizing the same APIs as that did. Now, granted, that gave a lot more information than people thought they were giving up, but did it actually contain the private messages? I don't know. So, effectively, what happened is Facebook tries to compete with Netflix, but Netflix sees a potential for an ad revenue. So the ad revenue starts coming in. And as the ad revenue starts coming in, Facebook and Netflix work a deal to gain access to that whitelist API, which gives the highest level of user data. And this allowed Netflix to more effectively target ads, upping their budget to $200 million. I can't remember, probably per month or something insane. Year or month, whatever it was. And so that's really what happened. And as part of these backdoor negotiations, Facebook agreed it's going to shutter its streaming competitor service. So that kind of winds down. This is still when Hastings was still at Netflix, which I believe he left a while ago. I think he left a while ago anyway. So this is all happening in that era. We're talking things that happened a decade ago. The allegation, according to a New York Times release, it should be quoted in here somewhere, but an allegation according to a New York Times release looking over data suggested that the people had that Netflix had access to actual PMs. Facebook's response said, no, they did not have access to the PMs because we made the private messages end-to-end encrypted, but we built a methodology where a person could access the messages on an end-to-end encrypted from our server, from the Netflix app, and that data could flow through, but it was all encrypted. So did Netflix actually have access to that data or not? I'm going to probably guess no. New York Times says yes, but we haven't seen all the documents yet, and this is an ongoing case. So I don't know. This is definitely one that hopefully we get an update on soon, but it raises the question of what exactly is going on. And so that's definitely a fascinating thing. Well, with that, we're going to jump on over to security news next. And my fade transition did not work. There it goes. Now it worked. So, of course, as all sorts of governments around the world are trying to get in and do biometric data. Of course, we talked about Vietnam's new biometric data where they get your voice print, your DNA, your fingerprint, your iris print. They put it all in this global, highly secure government database that only the government resources can access. As more and more countries start to do this, we're going to see more of what happened to India. India's cloud data spilled online for years. And even after a security researcher said, hey, your database is wide open, the Indian government said, we don't care. Remember that India was going around, they were collecting biometric information, creating a central database of all of the nation's citizens. Well, that database was not actually secure. Anybody could get in there and extract any data that they want. A researcher found this out and alerted them to it, and they still said, we don't really care. And for years, even up to just a couple weeks ago, that data was still freely and openly accessible to anybody who knew how to get in there. So the data leaked included their number, basically their version of the social security number, the Kufi vaccination date, passport details, and probably with those three things, anything and everything else about an individual person from the centralized database. And so it begs a question, should we allow governments to do this type of stuff? I say no. I say no, we need to not have any form of centralized database on any information. It is too rife to be abused. In fact, if you are one of our Patreon, Locals, Subscribe Star, or Think Life Media followers, the story last month talked about how potential abuses of that could be used. And so, and we have a similar one for this month, which I've started to write today. So very fascinating. But yeah, their citizen data was leaking online for years. Krebs on Security brings us information about the MFA bombing attacks targeting Apple users. So Apple has an error where if somebody attempts to get into that iCloud account, they are going to send a notification to all devices connected to that account forcing you to either approve or deny the request for the change password. And this is happening in apparently an automated system where hundreds of these could come in an hour. And if you accidentally push the yes on on any one of these, you could open up your account to being openly hacked. Well, what they're also doing is they're causing this issue, causing some people to be like, man, something's going on. And then all of a sudden, what a quinky dink, the phone number tied to Apple's customer support calls you on the phone and says, we are having a problem with your Apple account. We need you to push one of these buttons and give us the code so we can fix the error. And the people that are foolish enough to think that Apple is actually going to call you, side note, they won't. They will never call you unless you explicitly ask them to call you. So, and by the way, if you're getting attacked by this one, don't ask them to call you. Find another means of communicating with them. So what they're relying on is the push bombing or MFA fatigue, and they're doing some automated thing that's going to force all these things over, and then they are going to call you spoofing Apple's number, which is 1-800-275-2273. So if you are getting these types of things on an Apple device and this phone number calls you, if you pick it up, play with the guy. Oh yeah, I'll give him the number. Let's see. It is FUC. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's not finish that. So basically, they're doing this really brilliant thing that's really designed to just wear you out as a person. Now, even creating a new Apple account does not solve this because it is tied to the number. Apple support said if you enable the security keys instead, the Apple recovery key, the Apple people say this stops, but both Krebs on security and the other independent researcher working on this say no, that does not stop the account from this type of attack. And so we're getting all sorts of weird crap going on. Short story is, if you happen to be getting any of these things, just switch to Android. That is what your solution is going to be. Literally. Or actually, I guess the other thing you could do most likely is disassociate your Apple account. When I had some iOS devices floating around, what I would do is I would attach the Apple ID, and I would download all of the apps, configure everything I wanted, and then I would remove the Apple ID from it. I don't go around installing a bunch of apps anyway, and I could always re-add it if I want to do that. My guess is how this is working, if you disassociate the Apple ID from your device, and remember, your device is going to work perfectly fine. Now, it's not going to sync stuff to iCloud, but I don't recommend people sync stuff to iCloud anyway. And so if you are using an iOS device and this is happening, the best short-term solution for you, just disassociate your Apple account from your device and let them, ping the ether for all eternity. So that might be my thoughts, but I'm not an iOS guy. That's just what I would do. And our final article comes from Google Chrome is going to get device-bound session credentials. I'm not a security researcher, so I don't know if I don't see the huge downsides. I would love it if you guys have some ideas as to how this is a bad thing. I actually think this is a good thing. So what they're doing is when you are using your password, maybe you're saving a session cookie because you don't want to enter your MFA every single time you log into Google. What they're doing is they store the session cookie. The problem is a lot of these breaches, like the big one that took down Linus Tech Tips for a day, that was this same type of attack. Somebody gets in there, steals the session cookies, and then with those session cookies, even if you have changed your password, they can still get in, bypassing MFA in the process. Yeah, I thought that was going to solve all our problems. Guess not. Well, what they're doing now is they are tying a security key to these session cookies. So what you're going to do on any supported browser is you log into the site and then you enter your MFA, and then it actually creates a separate public and private cryptographic signing of your session cookie. So that session cookie, when that is called to log you in, is going to make a call to the private key. So effectively, anybody trying to do this type of attack is now also going to have to try and steal that private key. Now, if they're stealing your public cookies, it's very possible they're going to steal your private key too. It depends on how that's implemented. Hopefully they have a good way of implementing it. But I think in principle, this is a good step up from the security to maintain the logged in status without having to re-enter MFA every single time, and not just having a simple session cookie that can be copied out of browser cache. Because in theory, it's going to copy the one out of the browser cache and keep the other in the keyring of the computer, which makes it way, way, way more secure. So this might actually be a really good solution. Let me know if your ideas on how this might not be a good solution in the comments. But overall, I see this as an overall net win, and I think that this is probably something to look forward to. So I don't know. We'll see if what Mozilla has to say about this. This is the first time I've seen this type of approach coming on down the pipeline. Well, if you want to help support the channel, we do use affiliates. Today we are highlighting A2 Hosting. If you happen to want a website or need a website and you need good hosting, I use A2 Hosting for several of my clients. They have good service. It does not break your bank, and their support is local to the United States. Their services are very fast, and you can get really good website support, website speeds. Overall, excellent place to go if you are looking for any form of hosting packages. tlm.li/A2H. That will help support the channel while giving you a really good web hosting platform. And if you need a website, hey, reach out to me. I do websites as well. So you can reach out and do that. And with that, let's have a look over at business news next. First up in business news, California pushes out a new law. It wants to introduce a law that will force workers to disconnect from work. There are some carve-outs for emergency circumstances, and obviously emergency physicians can still be on call. That's been something that has not been a problem for a long, long time. What California is fighting against here is the idea that you go out, you get a job, you're paid a barely livable wage. Well, by the way, your CEO is making millions and millions and millions. You're getting a barely livable wage. It's been a long day. It's 5 o'clock. You go home and then your email rings and you got called for something. You got to check in. You got to log into your account from your home computer and do this, that, or the other for somebody else. So what California wants to do is say, hey, you need to establish working hours and you're not allowed to deviate outside. Now, talking to Solbu on our Thursday shows, this is a law that works very well in his country, in Norway. And, once a person leaves for work, it has to be a groundbreaking emergency for them to be called back in or to called for a meeting. And so what I'm really interested in seeing, I want to see Joshua Fluke's take on this, because this is kind of his world where he gets into these in a lot more detail. Because, of course, he talks about on some of his shows where, people will be like, you can't look like you're actually not giving, 180% despite you're only being paid for 100%. And so people do things like, well, hey guys, I'm catching the plane now. Like he talked about this in one of his more recent videos. He says, you openly announce to the office you're leaving now so you can catch the train, but you'll see online a little bit. And so there's this trend that people think that in order to progress in their company, you need to leave, go home, and then immediately get back on and be monitoring the work situation even on your off time. And that's what California is trying to say. No, enough of this nonsense. Somebody did comment in here that it's the peak of irony that it's the middle of Silicon Valley who created all of the technology being used for all of this stuff is telling people that you need to disconnect from it all. Very interesting in and of itself. Maybe it's part of a thing to get people to, quote unquote, return to the office. Of course, you can very easily have a business work mode And I've done this for years successfully. I have been a work at home person for 15 years. Okay. I have been technically 14. I quit teaching in 2010 and I've been completely full-time ever since. Independent, full-time home offices. Never had another job at some other company since then. Been completely independent. So in light of that, it's very possible to establish a home office and say, okay, these are my working hours. Outside of that, this goes down. The work phone I have stays over here and is turned off, and you won't see me again until the morning. And if you call my personal phone, something better be on fire. And you're offering some extra funds here. So this is AB 2751, draws inspiration from countries like France, Spain, and Ireland. If passed, it sets a precedent for not only the U.S., but other countries globally. Recent months, all eyes have been in California tech sector over concerns that Silicon Valley's work-life balance has degraded. It has degraded like the streets of San Francisco. Bill aims to address concerns over burnout, stress, and blurring of boundaries between work and personal life in today's digital working landscape. So the right to disconnect law basically says that once you check out for your job, you are not supposed to be penalized. Now, does this mean someone's not going to penalize you? Of course not. Because you know that guy that says, I just want to look like I'm always available, he's always going to be looked a little bit more favorable for that promotion than the guy that says, you can't force me to work after I've gone home. And that's the root of the problem. So I don't know if this really solves anything other than maybe some whiny moron having the more teeth to sue a California company when they promote the guy that ignored this law rather than the guy that decided to go home with his family. Basically, our landscape of society is utter nonsense. So, whatever that's worth. We have another story that didn't load the CSS. Ars Technica again. So Amazon kills the Just Walkout shopping technology. It turns out that all of those stores were powered by thousands of Indians watching you on security cameras, making note of anything and everything you were doing in the store. So it wasn't really, like you go into the store and then you check out with a single cashier that you're paying perilously close to minimum wage. No, you had to pay 1,000 Indian guys. Now, you might pay 1,000 Indian guys less than 5 workers on the field. I don't know, depending on what their roles and things are. But what they were doing is they were sitting there watching all of these cameras. Every time you walked into that Amazon store, they're watching everything you're doing. And this led to some people were not receiving, if you remember this, some people were not receiving their bill from their Amazon Go store for sometimes several hours later. It's because the Indians were still busy watching all of the footage of you going around the store and making sure that everything in there got billed for and everything didn't get billed for. And so they kind of decided, yeah, we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. 1,000 Indians over there is not worth this store because, it's effectively they were hoping to be able to hire these guys for a short period of time and let the AI take over. The AI never got good at figuring out who was doing what with what and charging people appropriately. And so that's really what happened there. Stores are closed down now. They're not actually closing the stores. They're just getting out of that individual tech and they'll actually be staffing the stores. So that is how that's going to work. So that's neat. Once again, Ars Technica articles are not loading today. Discord starts down the dangerous road of ads. Yay! Or is this all a bad April Fool's joke? This is reported on April 1st, but I am going to assume it is real since there have been some rumblings about this that go past that earlier. So basically what they're going to do, Discord, of course, started for gamer stuff. And so what they're doing is they are allowing products to do what they're calling sponsored quests, offer PC gamers in-game rewards for getting friends to watch a stream of them playing through it on Discord. So the idea here is that the gaming companies will be able to advertise by doing side quests for favorite games. So effectively, you'd be playing the game, people will see how cool this is, and they're going to feed the advertisement. If you click on this, you're going to pay some small amount of money for that. Guess what? We've just developed an advertising revenue model. How wonderful. So that is what we are seeing over here. So the Discord will target ads depending on users' age, geographic location data, and gameplay. The ads will live on the bottom left of the screen, but users can opt out of personalized promotions. Isn't that great that you can opt out of personalized ones, but you can't say, stop giving me ads? Once again, Louis Rossman's R-word mentality here. It's like, is your personal preference to be bending this way over the desk or bending that way over the desk? If you don't give us a personal preference, we're just going to bend you how we want over the desk. Thank you, Louis, for that wonderful ideology here. And so, what do you guys think? Is it exciting to you that we're going to start seeing ads inside of Discord? Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Of course, Discord made it pretty good without pushing any of these ads on it. Maybe it's about time, but I don't know. Maybe some good old-fashioned malvertising we're all used to might be good. Or, hey, maybe this is a novel enough approach that it might just be a positive experience for some people. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think. Well, with that, let's head on over to your favorite place and mine. That is right. We are heading on over to SillyVille. Well, guys, the Ringling Bros Circus is back. The only animal performer is this nightmare fuel. What the hell is this thing? This is Bailey, the robo-dog, and this is now the only animal in the three-ring circus. He has a 45-minute battery life. It's a 2-hour show. The dog actually only makes about 2 appearances. The eyes over here are just a phone. This is literally just a smartphone and a picture of eyes. We got crazy pink hair. There's a spring tail. Here's the trainer playing with the robo-dog. Here's a little better picture so you can see the nightmare fuel itself. Here's a little springy tail. Apparently, though, children really like the dog, so apparently it's successful. So if you remember, of course, the circus has always been an interesting thing. I remember taking, when I was mentoring a kid, that must have been close to 20 years ago now, we take a kid out to a circus, and there's PETA out there giving us brochures about what we're really going to see. I'm like, go away. Go eat some vegetables or something, you moron. But circuses have faded out. They were eventually charged a ton of money for inhumane treatment of animals, and then eventually they shut down the circus altogether. Was this positive or not? I was thinking about this in fine detail last night. I can kind of see both sides of the story. Being a young person at the tail end right before they closed the circuses down, yeah, it is kind of annoying. PETA had to do whatever things, but you must understand this. Stop and think about this, though. And this is the thing that really got me to think, maybe the circus is time to go or have some radical change. Remember that prior to the animals, the circus around the turn of the century, like the turn of the previous century, 18 and 1900s is when the circus kind of started. It literally started by collecting the world's freaks and displaying the bearded lady was from then. They had the dwarves, they had the giants, they had the freaks, they had the people with multiple limbs, and they displayed the anomalies of the world as quote-unquote freak shows. And as making profit and money off of the quote-unquote freak shows, paying them barely livable wages, giving even the human beings really horrible circumstances, somewhere around the line, we kind of decided that probably wasn't good. And then eventually it got to the point where, yeah, doing this to the animals probably wasn't as good. So I am definitely of a split mind. But this nightmare fuel, no, 1,000 times no, this thing is nuts. I'd rather not have a circus than to know this thing is dancing in circles. But let me know what you think. Is this just the new circus? The circus can now go on because we're simply abusing AI and robots instead? I mean, will someone please think of the poor robotic dog? Really? Well, guys, just a warning right now. I do keep the show as family friendly as possible. We just got finished talking about this circus dog, which apparently children love this thing. In their test runs, children love this. If you got kids watching, that's so cool. Yes, I'm being somewhat facetious with my thing, but as family friendly as I keep the show, this is the time to get your children to leave the room. This final SillyVille story was just too crazy. I had to include it. But this is your warning. This next story, our final story for the night, is not family friendly. You have been warned. Are you worried about that bump on your date's sausage? There's an app for that. You literally take a picture of your potential partner's dong and upload it to the cloud, and the app will tell you, or don't put that inside of you. We have apps for everything. Now we have an app for seeing what the weird thing is on the peccadillos. Company behind the app says no personal information is collected, but experts warn how easily the data can be hacked. So this individual person with a weird name came up with the idea for an AI-driven app when a friend was worried about a bump on their hot dogs. This person was then a consultant physician in Singapore, but he saw the potential for an app that could instantly identify suspected STDs. I guess they're calling them STIs now, from a photo of the male parts. What is this, sexist? No female photos? No photos of hamburger buns? That can carry something weird too. So sexist. Calmera, which is specifically designed for people to check the willy wongs of potential heels to Jesus partners, is one of two apps launched by this company to use AIs to identify STIs. Now, experts are concerned about the privacy implications of the app. You think? Friends don't let friends use an AI STI test. Okay, call me crazy here. Call me crazy. I know I'm a radical. You know, I'm so radical, I think if you don't want a baby, keep wieners out of there. I also think if you need to take a picture of the parts before inserting them inside of the nether regions, you probably don't want to put the parts inside the nether regions. Like, I'm a little suspicious of that thing over there. Let's take a picture and let the phone tell me if it's okay to shoot some putty at the moon. It will allow users to share a photo of the partner's willy wongs with the app that analyzes the photo using artificial intelligence that has been trained on 1,000 photos of willy wongs, both without STIs and with those of warts, PP cancer, HSV, candiditis, and syphilis. If the AI matches a potential STI, it will flag the user to hold off on activity, and it suggests alternatives. It will not say what condition it might be. If there's no match, it will give an all clear. That's an interesting shaped thing on your willy wong. Let me take a picture of the willy wong with the phone. Click. It doesn't know what that thing is. Let's stick it in me. Oh, sweet Apophis meteor of doom, take us out sooner than 2029. Currently only running in the U.S., connecting users to practitioners in California, of course. It has had 35,000 users so far. I would like to meet the people stupid enough to do this. Just not too close. I will meet them with a rubber suit. I have questions about your infection level. Let me take a picture of that thing on your wiener. According to the paper on development of the data set that underpins the AI, it was trained on more than 200 images of willy wongs, with and without them. It has since expanded on 20,000 images after the company did a call for Dick pics for science. The data set took 18 months to build, and each image has been annotated by a physician on whether or not we have a visible STI and what it might be. Keyword might. Experts say privacy was a huge concern for the health information, and the technology might have a future. They were concerned about rushing the product to the market. Recent events have shown us how easy private health information can be hacked and disseminated. If the technology connects information that isn't supported by rigorous data security or whatever. So there you are, guys. Now there's an app for that. Yeah. Well, if you want to help support this channel over on Patreon, because after reading articles like that, I may never get a real job again. You can find me over on Patreon, patreon.com/TOMM. You can also find me on Subscribestar, subscribestar.com/switchedtolinux, or at switchedtolinux.locals.com. Of course, if you are watching this on Rumble, you can just click that join button, and that will take you right on over to Rumble. And with that, guys, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.